Welcome to my channel. I'm Elizabeth Liz Muschett, and today we're talking about the fall equinox Libra Ingress, the Sun's Libra Ingress of 2025. And joining me today is Justin Crockett, Elzie. Hi, Justin. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Liz. It's awesome being here with you today. Thank you for having me talking about the fall equinox.
Well, thanks for joining me. So here we are talking about the fall equinox or the autumn equinox. And Justin is an archetypal astrologer and Jyotish astrologer, teacher, author, and seer. And the best way to contact him is through his email at justin.elzie@gmail.com. I'm an astrologer, author, intuitive, and you can reach me at alightpath.com. And we're talking about the Libra ingress or fall equinox. And I took this picture a couple of days ago on my deck with the spider web with it just sprinkled in. I thought that was really cool going into fall. So Libra is a cardinal modality which initiates and starts things. It's of the air element, about communication. Libra is ruled by Venus, and the equinox is equal day and night, and it begins a new season. And then you want to tell us about Libra and the caution?
Sure. Libra is about balance, harmony, relationship, law, duality, or some key words. And the caution with Libra can be victimization or chaos or encountering unfairness.
Thank you. And then Justin's going to tell us about the nakshatra for the sun in Libra. So go ahead.
Yes. So the sun in Libra here for this um, sun ingress into Libra. I should have put, instead of Logna, I should have put the sun Surya there, but that's what kind of threw me off for a second. But anyway, the nakshatra lunar mansion here for the sun as it moves into 0 degrees Libra is in the lunar mansion of Uttara Falguni and in the third pada. And the theme for this sun as it moves into Libra is about service and about abundance through partnerships or relationships, because the deity involved here is Ariamon, which is rules, contracts, unions, and so this star is called the star of patronage. And usually, if a person has some planets in this nakshatra, they'll tend to be a little bit more children life and they'll be more creative when they're in relationships. So, abundance is actually basis above is abundance through family, and basis below is through partner's family. And so, this really is a great time with this sun in this nakshatra to really focus on relationships and abundance in relationships.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And then Justin's going to share the mundane astrology rules for an ingress chart.
Yeah, and I also wanted to say one other thing about that is that this is a good time to start contracts or some relationships or unions. So it's a good time to do that. So when we look at mundane ingress charts, there's a little bit of a simple rule here because the ascendant is really important. And today we're going to look at the 3 different places in the world, and of course those 3 different places have different ascendants. There's Greenwich, England, which will have that chart, which is for the world, and then we'll have the Washington D.C. chart, and then we'll have the Seattle or West Coast chart, for San Francisco, LA, and of course each of those are 3 different ascendants, and because the ascendant is really important in Ingress charts. And so there's simple rules here. If the ascendant is in a fixed sign, for example, like Taurus or Scorpio or Leo or Aquarius, the chart that is generated is valid for a year. If the ascendant is in a mutable sign, which is Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, or Pisces, then that chart is valid or will cover for the next 6 months. And then if the ascendant is in a cardinal sign, which is Aries, Libra, Cancer, or Capricorn, then the chart is good for 3 months. And that's a basic, if you're learning astrology, those are the basic rules for Ingress charts for the ascendant.
Thanks for sharing that with us. So we're going to start with the fall equinox chart for Greenwich time, and that's on September 22nd at 6:20 p.m. The sun in the Greenwich chart is in the 6th house, and the ascendant is Aries at 15 degrees. So, with what Justin was just sharing, this world chart is active for the next 3 months, correct?
Yep, exactly. Yep. And one of the things I don't know about you, what you look at, Liz, but I always like to, like you pointed out, what house the sun is in gives us some insight. Then I also like to look at the moon, because the moon represents, for mundane charts, where the collective's focus is at, the people. And what else do you look at?
Well, I like to look at the aspects to that sun, but we'll do that at the next chart here in a moment. So, but yes, the moon is important too. And, in this chart for Greenwich, the sun and moon are both in that 6th house in Libra, because this is just following that eclipse that we had in 29 degrees of Virgo about a day ago. So it's still in that new moon phase.
Right.
Or it's today happening. It happened today. So while we're recording,
Exactly.
I mean, it happened earlier today, but not too long ago. So.
Right.
So is there anything else that you like to look at in the chart?
Well, no, same as you. What are the aspects are, especially with Mars, and I find it interesting that for the Greenwich chart, that all the personal planets are grouped together in one portion of the sky. Most of them there are in the 6th house of work and health, and so that seems to be a little bit of a focus on day-to-day issues for Europe and pretty much most of the world in that area in Greenwich, England.
And the aspects will be the same no matter which chart, whether it's the Washington, D.C. chart or the Seattle chart. The aspects will all stay the same as we're going through the show. So, so you have for the ascendant, the nakshatra for the ascendant for the Greenwich chart. So I'll
Right.
let you share about that.
Yeah. So if we want to also get a little bit more insight into that ascendant for Greenwich, England, the nakshatra here is Shatabhashisha, which is in the 4th pada, and it's the theme of this star is called the 100 physicians, or the 100 stars, because the ruling deity here is Varuna, which was the god of cosmic rains and terrestrial waters, but also the mystical healer. And so this ascended here that we see is related to imagination and the Shakti power to heal and support. The symbol is an empty circle, and the basis above is all pervasiveness, and basis below is support for everything. So, as if we were looking at where this is at in Greenwich, England, of course, this is kind of the overlying energy of the ascendant in that place. And so people are going to probably be a little bit more focused on healing and supporting each other and being open to new experiences because of this.
Well, that's very interesting and adds another layer. I like it. So we're going to look at the sun aspects, and we're still using the Greenwich chart. So the sun has a conjunction with Mercury, a sextile to Vesta, a square to Hygeia, a trine to Uranus, Sedna, and Pluto and Pallas Athena, and an opposition with Saturn and Neptune. So would you like to speak to any of those?
Yeah, well, if we're looking at the theme of healing others and going, I like that the sun is squaring Hygeia, because it's forcing some type of emotional healing, probably within relationships, because the sun being in Libra and the Hygeia being in Cancer, and of course we're all being affected by Hygeia and Cancer right now. So there is definitely a focus on emotions generally. So that's one that really jumped out to me, but also that grand trine there between the sun and Pluto and Uranus. So I think again this is to me, indicative of a lot of change in our relationships right now.
Oh, absolutely. And, with that Sun conjunct Mercury in Libra, it's like wanting us to communicate with compassion with each other, and kindness and equality in a balanced way, I would say, very much.
Yeah.
And then those are opposite that Saturn and Neptune, so it might be difficult because sometimes an opposition can be a challenge, but they're aware of each other, so that's a really good aspect there.
Right. Well, and I like what you point out, because that the grand trine there, along with the opposition, really kind of tells us everything that's really going on with the relationships in the collective right now. I mean, there's a lot of change with the Pluto Uranus triangulation there, and then like, as you said, that Neptune represents the collective, and Saturn is the planet of bringing in some obstacles and difficulties there, and it's opposing the Sun. So it's almost like we're being challenged to look at our own relationship with the collective and how we are dealing with the emotions of the changes in the collective right now.
Exactly. So anything else you'd like to comment on this chart before we go to the next one?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, so we have the aspect pattern of a grand trine, and this is in air signs. And then it forms off into two kites, one being that Saturn and Neptune, and the other one being Vesta and Pallas Athena, or Vesta and Juno. Sorry about that. And so it's like, just the air grand trine, it's like wanting us to communicate. It's like communication is really important. Information is really important. It's like we need to process information and communicate in a really, step up so that we understand each other. And, if we don't understand, to ask questions, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I think when we get more down into the weeds here, potential themes within relationships that can be challenging right now, and of course, as we know, sign of Libra is about this sign that rules relationships. But the Juno, being the wife of Jupiter, and representative of relationship or marriage or close relationships, being in Scorpio, it's definitely can bring out themes and relationships around jealousy, um, being hurt and how they're responding, but also a lot of intense emotions in relationships right now in the collective. And I think that's really representative of the Juno there. And of course, as we know, that Lilith is also currently really close to that Juno in Scorpio as well. So a lot of people we're having to really let go, just let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go of stuff in relationships right now.
Right, and this grand trine kite, has the outer planets as a big part of it, which is a minor grand trine, and that's been active for months and will continue to be active, within orb. It won't be exact, but it's within orb. So that's going to continue to be a pattern, and we kind of go between having air or fire grand trine to water and earth. So it's kind of going back and forth between that active and the yin and the yang. And so it's like taking it in, or is it an outward thing, like going from the masculine to the feminine to the masculine to the feminine, kind of bouncing back and forth. And I'm not talking about somebody's gender. I'm just talking about an energy that
Right.
the masculine energy is more out there and active, where a feminine energy is more yin and within and emotional.
Yeah.
So do you have
And
any?
something I would also say that jumps out to me, of course, is that that just in the last week and a half here, that Mars has moved into Scorpio, and that brings that I think adds to the Scorpio flavor of, you know, Mars in Scorpio. There's a level of control there, wants to control, and there's power issues that'll come up within relationships with Mars in the Scorpio. Of course, it's also sometimes seen as really indicative of war and fighting.
Yes, absolutely. Anything else more about this chart? Okay.
No.
So now we're looking at a mystical rectangle. A mystical rectangle is 2 trines and 2 sextiles that all connect with 4 different points, and then the 2 oppositions and 2 points of Thales. So it's, you know, pretty active aspect, and you know, it sounds really kind of, you know, really cool, but there's a lot of work and effort to put forth to receive the reward or the gift from the mystic rectangle. So we have Saturn, Neptune, sextile Uranus and Sedna, trine Vesta, Juno, sextile Sun, and trine Uranus and Sedna. And then that Saturn and Neptune are opposite the Sun, and Uranus, Sedna are opposite the Vesta, Juno. So what would you like to say about the mystic rectangle?
Well, I think, you know, you're the expert on mystic triangles here. I think this just really captures everything we just talked about on the last couple of slides as a theme, and it puts it into that, as you say, mystic triangle, and also point of Thales, which is the opposition trine and sextile. And it just is showing us that there's a complete theme and a cycle here. And I think the one of the things with the point of Thales is if we looked at those separately, you know, you look at the opposition and then move towards the trine and then the sextile can be a way or a technique of how that theme may play out and how it needs to be completed from start to finish.
Exactly. And, you know, we have Saturn and Neptune and Uranus, those outer planets involved in this mystic rectangle. So, you know, these outer planets have been really active in aspect patterns for months, and they continue to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, the Sun, you know, it's like our ego and what we want to accomplish. So, but, you know, I would say that there's some hard work, and those oppositions, it's like it's very important to become aware of what's opposite and, you know, then start integrating.
Right. Absolutely. And then of course how it relates to our own natal chart too. You know, if you overlay that onto the transits, and it gives us a even deeper how it relates to us personally, this mystic triangle.
Absolutely. And then we have some other aspect patterns. We have a T square with Venus square Uranus Sedna and Vesta Juno. We have a Yod with Mars being the apex, which is quincunx Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus Sedna. And then we have a couple of squares here, Mars square Pluto, and then Jupiter square Eris Chiron. So where would you like to start?
Well, you know, I'm a Mars guy, so I like to, and I love talking about quincunxes, and because they are really something to always pay attention to, because it shows an imbalance in relationships. So it to me, I think one way you could look at the Mars there being quincunx, the Saturn and Neptune, is that it's activating some type of action. Mars is trying to take some type of action with something, you know, whether it's fighting or war or getting into those relationships and what has to happen. But it's bumping up against you know, the Saturn there with obstacles, and Sedna, which is saying, well, you know, you have to do some of this your own self, and not, you can't really depend upon other people. And there's a little bit of a risk there, because we know that when Mars aspects Uranus, that's an element of risk taking or sudden impulsiveness. So this could mean where people, you know, in disagreements and relationships can maybe be a little too impulsive, of clapping back with the Mars quincunxing Uranus there.
Well, and Mars is in one of the signs that it rules, Scorpio, so it's pretty happy there. You know, it wasn't the happiest when it was in Libra, but boy, is it happy now.
Yeah. It can fully realize itself.
Yes, 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 in its own element, so to speak. So, yeah, I like what you said about the yacht, and Mars is very active in this chart because Mars is also square Pluto, which is a challenging aspect because I would just tell people to be very aware. Don't be in a hurry when you're going places because it, you know, could be arguments, it could be um, people driving recklessly, any number of things. It's like, you know, there's always the potential of people getting really upset with something that maybe it's really not necessary to be that upset, but it could be really upsetting at first and then, you know, probably calm down afterwards.
Yeah.
And then we have the T square with Venus. So Venus is also very active in this chart, with that T square with Vesta and Juno opposite that Uranus and Sedna. So, like you said before, Juno is about relationships and Vesta is about hearth and home. And that hearth can be our individual home, but it can be our town center. It can be our state as a center. It can be the United States. It can be what country you live in. It can be any number of things. And then it's opposite that Uranus. So, probably a lot of change happening, things constantly changing, so sometimes we don't know exactly where we stand, and then Venus is our values and our possessions, and so sometimes, you know, it might be you might have some plans, but it's like, "Do I do it now? Do I wait?" So there's, like, some uncertainty a little bit around that. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was going to mention about what jumped out to me was also the Jupiter squaring Eris and Chiron there, and I think this isn't really indicative of what's not only going on in the United States, but what's going on worldwide. The world, we kind of feel like it's only happening here, but there is a lot of change happening worldwide too. And Jupiter in Cancer is all about family or tribalism, and of course that's squaring Eris. They're in Aries and Chiron. So there's a question here of who belongs and who doesn't belong in the family, quote unquote, or country. And that's really why we have that square there. It's really something to pay attention to. I mean, because there's conflict there with that. And I think it's really just highlighting how we need to watch our emotions. And with Hygeia there, as we saw earlier, that was squaring, I believe it was the sun. And just again, pointing out really to do self-care and try to get rid of any internal strife that's welling up in us.
Right, and, like, you know, how do I fit in my family? Do I fit in with my family, or do I have what I call a family of choice, which, you know, close friends that are more like family than blood family, perhaps. So,
Right.
you know, and opening that and looking at it realistically and working on healing any of those little wounds that one may have.
Right. Right. And I think it also, again, discord, Eris and discord with Jupiter and family, that could be, we see more discord in family, but again, there's a it also could be that we change some way that we nurture ourselves, and we change our diet to what we're eating. There could be discord or upheaval in our diet, because that's a Cancerian theme there. So it's something to pay attention to, our solar plexus, where our tummy's at, and how we're eating, and how is that relating to our conflict or discord.
Exactly. So is there anything else you'd like to say about this chart or these
No, I
aspects?
think you got it covered.
Okay, now we're going to look at the fall equinox for Eastern Daylight Time, Washington, D.C. at 2:20 p.m. The sun is in the ninth house and the ascendant is Sagittarius. And Justin's going to tell us the nakshatra
Yeah,
for
and
the.
we're going to go back to that chart, right? Because there's a couple of things I had to comment on it. No, if we're looking at And we'll definitely want to talk to about the nakshatra for the ascendant here in a minute. What's going on with the United States chart here, or it really kind of represents the East Coast, but also the country. I thought what was interesting is that the people, the moon is in the ninth house, which if we look from a mundane place, that's the judiciary. So people are looking to the judiciary here with the stuff that's happening in the country. But then when we look at, interestingly, the discord with Eris, it's in the fourth house of family, what we're talking about, and how it's squaring Jupiter in Cancer in the seventh house of relationships. And Hygeia is there in the seventh house of relationships. So this is exactly, really in alignment with what we were just talking about, which relationships belong in the family and which ones don't. And then of course we got that Juno invested in 11th house of social group, and our outward facing there to the world is that Mars and almost at the very top there. And then Saturn in the third house. It's not necessarily a good place for Saturn, and that house of communications and sort of some people are taking things seriously now because of that could over the next 3 months here take things seriously because of the Saturn in the third house. Because I think Pluto's in the first house here, it could mean that we have a lot of things that happen outside our control that changes how we maybe look at ourselves or some action that we may take. So that's just kind of a quick, I just love this chart. I was wondering what you thought.
Well, and I want to comment that this is a mutable ascendant. So this chart for the United States will be active for the next 6 months. And then with that sun and moon in that ninth house, it's also about our philosophy, our faith, our beliefs as a country. And we, it's opposite Saturn and Neptune. So there's, is something new changing that we're going to have a new one, or we have, because Neptune is can be our idea of what it is, but it can dissolve what our idea is. And then Saturn's like trying to put a structure around all that, and it's in Pisces, a water sign, which is the sign of philosophy and faith. Basically, I mean, it covers a lot of other things. So I would kind of say that in the United States, we're kind of having a test of our faith, so to speak. And, and that can be a number of things. It's not just one or this one or that one. And I think it's everybody for everything on a very deep level. And
it's a good time to write and publish too.
Yes.
Look at Uranus in that fifth house, right? And,
Well, and with that Saturn, Neptune in that third house, it could be difficult to express some new idea or some dream or how to communicate it around that. So it's like, take good notes and keep working on how you're going to express that or share that, or, maybe it's not the right time yet. I mean, it could be any number of things like that. So anything else?
No. I guess let's look at the nakshatra, the ascendant for that. So again, I love this because the ascendant shows how the collective is moving forward here. And so for the U.S. here, the lagna, that's the title, or what the ascendant is called in Sanskrit, is lagna. And so for the Washington D.C. chart here, the nakshatra is Mula, and it's in the second pada, and so it's called the star of transport. And the deity here is, and deities are so important in the Jyotish astrology, just like the Greek gods are so important in the Western astrology. It gives us a flavor for it here. And the ruling deity here is Nuriti, which is the goddess of destruction and destruction. And it's very similar to Kali. And so here the Shakti power is the power to destroy. But the symbol is reticulated roots, meaning it's all about this binding of roots and getting to the root of the problem. and this nakshatra gives us the ability to break and crush things and to destroy. And of course, the ruling planet is Ketu, which is the south node, which is disruptive. So this does mean, sort of with this ascendant for the Washington D.C. chart, that that space is going through a kind of a destruction, and it's getting to the root of things, and it has power to destroy, and it's somewhat related to creativity. So that is the ascendant for that Washington D.C. chart.
Oh, this is great information to add. I like it. So now we're going to look at the fall equinox chart for Pacific Daylight Time. Location I used was Seattle, and the sun is in the 10th house. The ascendant is Scorpio ascendant at 17 degrees. So this is a fixed ascendant. So this chart will be active for a year for the Seattle area. And then that moon is in the next house, the 11th house. So in the charts before, we had the sun and moon in the same house, but now we have the moon in the 11th house. So I'll let you start.
Yeah, so this was, I thought this chart was interesting too, in that the Uranus was in the 7th house here with Sedna, and it's almost like, and with the moon being in the 11th house of community groups or social groups or community, it's like the West Coast is focused on community. You know, and it's like maybe East Coast is more focused on the law and what's going on, but the West Coast is trying to build some sense of community alliances. You know, during the last week, we've seen a health alliance form on the West Coast. And so there probably will be sort of, and of course that sun and south node are in that 10th house of changing the outlook or way it looks outwardly on the West Coast spatially. And I think the Uranus being in that 7th house is, as we saw, it's when it's conjunct Saturn there. It's still there. They're in Gemini. It's really kind of speaking its own truth, and within relationships, and kind of its own ideas in a way here. What do you think?
Well, and I would say that relationships are going through a lot of change right now. So, and that can be, like you said, the Health Alliance made a new commitment and they joined forces and created something. So that can be a relationship. So I like what you said about that. And then, you know, here we have Mars in the 12th house. So it kind of, lots of times, you know, Mars or Saturn in the 12th house kind of closes that energy or dampens it down, so to speak. And I know that Pluto's in that 3rd house, so we have that Mars Pluto square. So it'll be interesting. And the 3rd house is about communication, and Pluto's in Aquarius, so it'll be interesting how the Mars Pluto activates the West Coast. That square for this week, I would say it'd be active.
Yeah, it's almost, to me, that's almost like it doesn't want the fight that's coming, or the chaos here. And so it's probably because with my experience with Mars in the 12th house can make take action at the wrong timings, you know. So it's almost like maybe questioning or direction as well, or evaluating direction.
Exactly. So anything else you'd like to comment on the West Coast chart?
No.
Okay, so now we're gonna
And
go.
so, yep, this is the Lagna, or the ascendant, for the West Coast. And so it's in a nakshatra. It's called Vishaka. It's in the first pada, and it's called the Star of Purpose. And again, I think this is a little indicative of what we were talking about with that Mars in the 12th house. You know, what's the purpose? Where are we going with this? And it's kind of important to understand the deity here. It's actually a diamorphic combination of two deities here. That's why you kind of see two faces, or two people sitting on that goat there. It's actually Indra, the chief of the gods, but it's also Agni, the god of fire, and the cutter that cuts things off. Like, if anybody ever has anything in this nakshatra, they're easily able just to say, okay, I'm done with that, cut it off. So it's kind of interesting is that this is kind of the ascendant here for the West Coast for the next 6 months. There's a little bit of this energy of like, okay, we're just gonna cut ourselves off from that, you know, and it has that zeal, that power to achieve. The ruling planet here is Jupiter. Of course, the ruling deity is a combination of Indra and Agni, and the symbol is the triumphant arch, kind of like we see the triumphant arch in Paris. And the basis above is to cultivate, and the basis below is to harvest. So it's a very, really powerful nakshatra that relates to being able just to cut the cords and strings and achieve something greater. I should say it's interesting because Prince Harry has something very close to this, and it kind of relates to in his personality how he cut himself off from the royal family. But that's another conversation for another time. But that kind of gives you that energy of what this is like.
Exactly. And, you know, to cultivate to me means like to plant, and then to harvest is to reap your reward. So like putting that effort forward, and then there is something to reap at the end, or the reward of some kind.
Right.
Well, thank you for sharing about the nakshatras. I find them very fascinating, and I'm so excited that you share them because I've been
My
learning
pleasure.
a lot.
My pleasure.
And then now we're going to do the Sabian symbols for the Libra sun. The Sabian symbols were channeled in 1925 by spiritualist medium Elzie Wheeler with the assistance of Mark Edmund Jones. And there's a saying for each of the 360 degrees of the zodiac that kind of makes an image or a picture. It creates a story. And we're going to use 3, the degree leading up to, the degree of, and the next where it's moving to. So for the sun at 0 degree Libra, we're going to start at Virgo 30, and I'll let Justin start.
And so what's leading into this here, the mantra there is that totally intent upon completing immediate task. A man is deaf to any allurement. And so the keynote here is the total concentration required for really any type of goal that we have. And the key phrase here is the conquest of illusion, or things that are pulling us off track, off our path, or our commitment.
And then Libra 1, in a collection of perfect specimens of many biological forms, a butterfly displays the beauty of its wings, its body impaled by a fine dart. And the keynote is immortal archetypal reality that a perfect and dedicated life reveals. And the key phrase is made sacred.
And then where this is going to here, the Libra 2 degrees here, the transmutation of the fruits of past experiences into the seed realizations of the forever creative spirit. Basically, what we're saying is here is that, you know, looking at past experiences, we take that wisdom, that knowledge from past experiences, and are using it towards where we're going next. And, you know, it's basically learning from your past experiences. It's a repolarization of our inner energies, leading to how we're, you know, centralizing our creative skills, and not getting scattered or unfocused on anything.
So how would you sum these 3 up?
Well, I would say, you know, when we look back at those charts, we saw some things around a lot around relationships, and people were in a reevaluation phase. I think this is really a time for people to take a look at where they're at with 3 months left in the year, and try to focus on some goals that they want to finish. Don't let anything pull you off track. Any allurement pull you off track. Just focus on your goals, and look at what worked this year so far, you know, past experiences, and use that wisdom that you've already gotten from this year to finish out the year well. What do you think?
Well, I like that. And conquering our illusions. I like that. So if it's like it's time to kind of rein in and be realistic in a way. And what do we what's sacred to us, or what do we like or appreciate? And then, to me, it's like being creative. It's like, it's like kind of we're changing the season. So like let the dross go. What doesn't work for us anymore? What don't we really need? Let that go. And then, what am I going to do for the next 3 months, or what projects am I going to work on, or how do I want to move forward in my life? So this is beautiful.
Yep, I agree with you.
Okay. So, do you have anything that like you want to leave our audience with for the next 3 months or this season to?
I think, really, I think these type of times really remind us how important a meditative practice is. Finding some sense of inner calm in our world, where we can actually control our breath and sit and quiet. And I think that's really good for us, having that's part of that total concentration and kind of refocusing and reevaluating what we want to accomplish. We got 3 months left for the end of the year, so it's a good time to evaluate. What do you think?
Well, and I like the change of seasons, and so to me, like that's always a good time to like, okay, how can I take better care of myself? What do I need? Am I working too much? Am I just not taking a little bit of time to myself? Do I need a bath from time to time? Or just to go for a walk in nature? It's like, to me, it's like a good time to reevaluate. Am I eating too much sugar, and I need to cut the sugar down? On all levels in our lives. So when those seasons change, it's like reevaluate, I would say. So
Yeah.
well, I want to thank you, Justin, for joining me today. I want to thank our audience for joining us live. We appreciate all of you. And Justin and I both do consultations, have newsletters, and YouTube channels. So we appreciate your support and you subscribing. And I'll let Justin tell you about his slide here.
And the best way to catch me in the social media world is on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, and you'll find all my videos there that I do.
Thank you. And on my channel, I have the Astrology Star Sisters that we do a number of shows each month. So there's a nice archive of shows to watch, and there's always upcoming shows. Justin and I do a few shows together each month, and there's other shows. So there's lots to offer and lots of upcoming shows also. Justin and I will be on Talk Cosmos on October 19th at 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, talking about the Libra new moon at 28 degrees. And I want to thank our sponsor, Astro Peregrine, an astrology software program for Mac and Windows. And to find out more information about that, you can go to astroperegrine.com, and there's details there. So I want to say thanks again, Justin, for joining me, and thanks to our audience. And we're going to sign off and say goodbye for now, but we'll see you all next time.
Bye.